but it's online at the moment. So
according to the United Nations, sports and play are human rights that must be respected and enforced worldwide. Sport has been increasingly recognized and used as a low-cost and high-impact tool in humanitarian development and peace-building efforts, not only by the UN system but also by non-governmental organizations, governments, development agencies, sports federations, armed forces, and the media. Sports can no longer be considered a luxury within any society, but is rather an important investment in the present and the future, particularly in developing countries. So for today, I would like us to work together to figure out how we interpret this. To start off, the first plenary session for today and the last of this Next Steps conference, I will invite Pradeep Narayanan to come and moderate the session. Pradeep Narayanan is currently Director of Research and Consultancies at Praxis Institute for Participatory Practices in New Delhi. He is a human rights and social development researcher who has been associated with many rights-based NGOs and campaigns in India. Along with professional qualifications in management science and development studies, Pradeep has over 18 years of experience working in different capacities in both government and non-government sectors.
This session we have 5 speakers. I invite Mr. Sameh Masri, Chairman, Palestine Sports for Life NGO. It's an organization which aims at developing sports and building the capacity of youth and women in Palestine. Sameh is going to speak on the important aspect of how the conflict and the sports would go as a sports become a solution for the various post-conflict scenarios. We also have Dr. Nico, who is a senior lecturer, sports management, University of Technology, Sydney. And he also focuses, he is going to bring experiences from both Zambia and Sri Lanka. And we have Monisha Singh Diwan, who is from Magic Bus. She's a development psychologist and has more than 18 years of working experience in varied sectors and geographies. She's at present heading a vertical in Magic Bus. And we have Mr. Aminul Islam Khan, who is a regional director, Commonwealth Youth Program, Asia Center, Commonwealth Secretariat. I invite him. He's also worked as a civil servant and diplomat for the last 23 years. And the last, but not the least, we have Shika Oberoi, who is among the top 100 tennis rankers in the world, and she has many firsts as far as India is concerned. And she is also an anthropologist who brings multiple perspectives of sports and other social things. I invite her. This is going to be an interesting session, primarily because this is an area in which sports can play very, very significant role. And I personally do not have much of experience of using sports for this particular theme. So there is a lot of learning for me as well as many of us. I think that is probably the only reason why I have been asked to moderate, because I may not have to speak much in this session. So I invite Mr. Sameh Masri to give us to give us about the experiences he has in Palestine using sports for post-conflict situation.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Sameh Masri from Palestine. I am the chairman of Palestine Sports for Life, NGO in Palestine. The first time I will thank the Magic Bus organization for this invitation and all the people contributes to success this conference. I will talk to you about the conflict situation in our country and how we as sports for development. Palestine. Where is Palestine? Palestine located in Middle East, next to Jordan, beside Syria and Egypt, beside Egypt and Mediterranean Sea. This is our flag. The situation in Palestine. We have many problems in Palestine. Conflict area, Israel occupation since 1948. A separation war. You can read this slide. Separation war racism. 723 kilometers long and 8 meters high. 5,000 prisoners. 173 children under 16 in prison. 121 settlements with 400,000 Israeli settlers in West Bank. 11 million Palestinian exile out Palestine and 7 million Israeli import from all the world to Palestine. And we can see what happened in this situation. This is maps will illustrate what happened in Palestine. As you can see, the green is Palestinian in 1947. And after occupation in second maps, you can see what happened. We have a new country, Israel. In they established this country in 1948. And in 1967, in 1967, they conquer another land to people Palestinian. This is number 3, maps number 3. The green, this is land under control Israeli government. And you can see number 4 maps. This is maps after peace agreement. And I don't know where our country now, maybe in some paper in the United Nations. This is a picture where can speak better me what happened in Palestine, and the children under arrested and the student girls under weapons, and this is many settlements, and this is war separation and treatment racism, unfortunately. The topic for this conflict, it's next step. This is history, and now we will see what we will do in future. About us, Sports for Life. You can see PS for I. It's easy. NGO, non-profit. We make a lot. You can see this, and you can write from read this slide. PS for all make a lot of activities in our community and professional activity, and we provide a lot of equipments and a lot of experience to our community, and we rise to share the awareness and knowledge. Sports for Life go to the deprived village and go to university to take the graduate student. They study work and they don't have any work in Palestine, and we can find the job for these people from our projects. our mission, Sports for Life, using sports inside our community. We're using the sport to find peace in our community. Because in our community we have a lot of problems besides the occupation problem. Sports for Life make a lot of activity to all the people in Palestine because we have a lot of people, many religion and many culture. We connect these people in a lot of activity to make some communication and a lot of relationships and friendly relations. S4D in Palestine, Sport for Development in Palestine. All our country and economy under occupation, and our children and youth suffer from physical and psychosocial distress. Sports for Life works in deprived villages, and we study these deprived villages we visited to deprived villages. Please go. I am sorry. We S4L visited to these deprived villages, and we have two problems in this area. The one problem is deprived villages, and another problem, they have occupation and conflict area. We study this situation and we see how we can help these people, and we make a lot of programs to these villages. And you can see this slide. We have one example from these villages. These villages, they have two problems. And this video maybe speak Peter Morgan. Please, you can key the video. We are Nabi Saleh this video.
صالح بلعب كوميسير بالليل وبنلعب جيش عرب أمجاد.
تسرق الأرض في وضح النهار، يعني بيعرفوا إنها أرض فلسطينية هذه، وبيعرفوا إن هذه الأرض أصحابها بيجوا يشتغلوا فيها، بس هم بيجوا بقوة السلاح وسيطرة.
طلبت المسيرات بتاريخ 15/12/2009 من خلال استيلائهم على نبع للمياه تابع لقرية نبي صالح.
بالنسبة لي أنا يعني عشان كسرت رجلي وأجت الكونغري في رجلي صرت يعني حتى لو بقدر أطلع ما أطلعش. كمان بالنسبة لي إنهم يعني دمروا حلم إلي.
ايش لازم نعمل عشان ناخذ اصلا؟
منا نواقلات الأرض منا نضرب عليهم الحجار.
رجعتوا في الارض تحطوا الحجر الدار.
Nabi Saleh village. This is village Nabi Saleh. We make a project in this village and funded by World Vision Organization. Many thanks to this organization. And PS4L make and we established a center to this village to play all the games and to make some there to the violence in this community. And you can see it the slides. Sorry. And we make a lot of activities like a basketball, soccer school, and skateboarding and chess to disability. And we make another activity like table tennis. And to support this project, we make building capacity to the youth in these villages, and this youth get out from the prison, and we receive them to make some building capacity to these people. And we have another video. Please, you can key it. This is after when our project, what we do in Nabi Saleh. This is the process capacity building.
For the children, because we have about 150 persons were arrested from the village. 35% of them is children. So they suffered after they released from psychological influence, bad one. So this project helped them very much to recover from these influences, so they have the chance to play the games that they like, and they have the chance to be reorganized as groups, as teams, and they have the chance to work as groups.
Thank you.
Thank you, Samir. We saw how what kind of transformation we saw, like with the children in the post sports, using sports as a tool. Now I invite Dr. Nico to come and help us with some experiences from his study which focus on changes through the sports.
Right. Good morning everyone, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today. For me it's a great opportunity to be here because normally I'm speaking at academic conferences, being at a university, and it's been quite refreshing to hear so many people actively doing stuff and not just talking about it. And So it's been a great experience, and I'd like to, in this talk, briefly talk about reconciliation in sport and some of the projects that we've been doing at the university, but also try to offer something about reconciliation between practitioners and academics as we go along. Okay, a bit of the background. I've come from a sport and event management background. I've started off as a volunteer in Sport for Development in a project in Sri Lanka in 2002, and I've ever since stayed involved with that. And from this there was my interest in researching sport for development at a university level, and then I decided to conduct my PhD study in Sri Lanka, which between 2005 and 2008 was at a very delicate state, and we'll talk about that a little bit in the other sessions later on. But it's given me a good opportunity to combine practical experiences with research, and I think this is something that we still need to do very much in the sport for development sector. So my focus has been on sport in divided societies. We've done also projects at not only Sri Lanka but also in Israel and Palestine, and more recently now in the Pacific Islands. And my focus within that has been on capacity building and local empowerment, particularly when we look at international organizations that come in and run sport for development programs in developing countries. How are we actually achieving a transfer of control and responsibility and power away from the external organizations to local communities so that they're able to sustain projects themselves and independently? So to start with, I want to give you a brief overview of what we do at my university, the University of Technology in Sydney. Generally, there are a lot of different homes for sport for development within academia. And we've got examples of sport sociology, sport management, some anthropology, some sit in physical education, and we haven't really got one particular field or one sport or one area where sport for development sits. And I think that offers great opportunity. In our case, we look at sport management, so the organising of sport projects, in this case the organising of sport for development, and how do we improve, or can we improve the processes behind the different programs that we offer. So we've got master's projects, for example, master's students that do sport management in general and have one sport for development component, one subject that particularly focuses on the organising and management of sport for development. And the reason I think why that's important is that we're basically preparing at the university the new staff, the future staff of sport for development organisations, and therefore bringing sport for development into the academic curriculum is, I think, a very important step. Something that takes a long time because universities do not move very fast, but we've established it now at UTS, and I'm glad that we can teach from our own experiences what's happening there in the sport for development world. One of the advantages we have is that we are not linked to one particular sport for development program, so it allows us to be quite critical and quite, engaged in discussing a variety of different aspects, different ways of looking at development outcomes. So we try to train our students to be critical thinkers and also be engaged practically with internships or industry projects, that they work practically with sport for development organisations and bring their experiences back in the classroom. Something quick about the academic research in sport for development. I know that a lot of you guys, when you're funders or you're the practitioners in the field, you know about the monitoring and evaluation and the importance of that, and that's certainly an important aspect, and that's what we do at universities and what we offer there. But it's also, I think, the independent research that is sometimes a bit overlooked. So what that means is we can go into the field and speak to sport for development organisations, to communities, etc., completely impartial and unbiased. So we can go in and do not only an evaluation, but also research, finding out new ways, innovative ways, critical ways of developing the field further. And I don't think that's a very scary thought. It's just something that I think organisations still need to get used to a little bit. Okay, a little bit about my research at UTS. Being of German background and having worked now in Australia and spent a lot of time in Sri Lanka, I've always been interested in an international perspective of these organisations that go in and provide sport for development. But I think over time, I've really started to focus on the local perspectives of what the communities actually think about sport for development and their achievements. So that has slightly shifted, and I think both perspectives are important to understand how this dynamic of sport for development works, particularly in the long run. Sport for development in conflict, and that's with this reconciliation focus important. I've seen a lot of money and a lot of support during conflict times in Sri Lanka, where organisations have donated money and funds to projects that were run during civil war times. Once the civil war is officially over, the funding stops in many cases. And I think that's a great opportunity lost, because just because the civil war officially ends doesn't mean that any reconciliation has actually properly started. So I think there may have to be a bit of a shift in focus there. I want to give you an example of the impact of external organisations working as change agents in sport for development from the experiences that I've had in Sri Lanka. Now here we found out through our research that an impartial external organisation that was not from the Sinhalese, Tamil or Muslim background was really important to get these programs going, because if it was organised by a Sinhalese group, the Tamils would have never participated, and the other way around. So having an impartial organiser in the middle of it to bridge the divide, in a sense, was very important, and that organisation had to stay involved very long and in the long term. Another example from Zambia, the same situation. A Sport for Development Organisation International went into a project in Zambia on gender empowerment. This organisation had funding for 1 year. It went in, established a new program, brought in all the bibs, all the cones, all the balls, had a wonderful new shiny program. Girls from the local communities, from local clubs, joined this program, had a great time for a year, it was successful. After that year, funding wasn't renewed, so the organisation withdrew, and the girls were left by themselves. The local clubs didn't want to take them back, because the other players said, well, you left us to go to the shiny program, now you want to come back, that's not on. So the kids were actually worse off, because there was a program that wasn't sustained in the long term, and I think those critical thoughts are important. This is one of the explanations of this, and promised to Tanyali to bring this up. Now, if you look at this figure over here, you start on the left-hand side, and on the top you've got the development of programs over time. Okay, so the first year is on the very left, and you work towards the right, which can probably be 3, 5, 7-year process. And then you look at the triangles, the degree of control by international organisations or change agents. And on the right-hand side, you've got the degree of control, power and responsibilities by local communities. And as we move along in time, from the first year to the second, third, fifth year, you see that the degree of control by externals will have to diminish. And overall, we end up hopefully at a stage at the very end here, where the control of the local communities is almost 100%. So at the very right of this, the international organisation may actually have to move on and detach themselves from being involved. Okay, so that's, I think, one of the lessons learned. And this takes time. Matthew Spacey talked about this on day one. It's a long process. This is not achieved in 1 year, and it's unlikely to be achieved in 2 years either. Okay, the final one, something that I would like to pick up on from day one as well, from Matthew's talk, and also Brian Suskiewicz mentioned this. Partnerships, leverage and growth. So imagine you've got a still lake and you throw in a rock in the middle of it. That's where the biggest impact is, and that's where all of your programs work with children, and they have got this impact of, yes, we're achieving development through sport. But how do we create that ripple effect, that it goes out? Because the stone gets in the middle, but then there's little ripples that go out. And how do we actually then achieve development and growth for the significant others, which are families, friends? How does it go out to network partners, to the policy community that gets then sport for development into curriculums, into university curriculums, school curriculums, physical education? How does it go on then to human rights, social justice, and how do we then transfer this knowledge to not only impact on our program, but other programs with the similar ideas and aims? Okay, final slide. The next steps, from a research perspective, I think we've got this beautiful opportunity now that we've got, say, 10 years of sport for development programs running. So we've got that chance now to speak to people that went through programs themselves and come back as re-engaged youth, as we've called them. So those kids, and we've got them here in Magic Bus, they've gone through the system and are now in charge of coaching, managing projects. And we haven't really heard too much, at least from a research perspective, about their thoughts. And the cooperation between industry and academia, I think, still has a long way to go. Are we really speaking the same language? Sometimes I struggle to understand my academic colleagues when they talk about theory up here. And combining that theory and practice is, I think, very important. Bringing research in from the academic side into programs right from the beginning is maybe something that I would like you to think about, because we can offer additional opportunities and additional knowledge, I guess, in driving sport for development forward. And the final one, the accessibility of research, that's on our side, the academic side. A lot of our research is published in some obscure journals that no practitioner has access to, but we've developed a good example of how it can be different in the Journal of Sport for Development. Those of you who haven't checked it out, the website is there, jsfd.org. It's an online, free, open access journal where people, practitioners and academics can both submit their journals and case studies, and they're freely available for everyone to download and learn. So that's, I think, one of the great ideas of combining theory and practice. And if you've got any further questions, I'm happy to answer them later on or in the discussion session. And I wanted to finish with highlighting a book that a colleague of mine, Daryl Adair, and I have just published last week, where we tried to do exactly this, combine theory and practice and have a critical perspective. So hopefully that'll be a good, enjoyable time for you all in the audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicole. I don't know if anybody is tweeting. If someone is tweeting, then you can always say sports unite the divided societies, and sports can be an impartial tool, and sports create the ripple effect in development projects. So I think that was the summary of Nico's speech. I now invite Monisha to talk on using sport for gender inclusion and social cohesion.
Very good morning to all of you. Throat's given way, but I think this is going to work. We've, as Gitanjali said, we're on the last day of the conference in a way, and the last plenary, and it's a pleasure to be here along with Pradeep, Nico, Samir, Aminul, and Shikha, and all of you, a very interested audience here. We all accept there have been discussions happening through the days here at the conference, and there have been these bright young children and youth who've come and shared their stories so very emphatically with all of us. One thing that comes across very clearly is what we accept, that the world is a gendered space. And India even more so. The recent statistics say that, well, even if you look at the Indian situation, Indian women in parliament, we have a poor 11% representation in India's Lok Sabha and 10.6% in the Rajya Sabha, making India 108th amongst 188 countries covered in the annual analysis on stats of women members in parliament. According to India's Finance Minister, Mr. Chidambaram, only 26% women in India have bank accounts. According to the gender Gap report shared at the World Economic Forum 2013. Of 136 countries evaluated for the gender gap in the area of health, education, economics, and politics, India stands at 101. It's the lowest ranked of the BRIC economies. Why am I giving you these statistics? The need is to move from gender inclusion to gender integration. Our commitment is for this movement to happen across the organization and the programs and projects that we do at Magic Bus. Our gender considerations are integrated within organizational structures across. This implies that there is a proactive awareness of the sensitivity to the ways in which spaces and processes are gender inclusive or exclusive. We also recognize that sports tends to be conceived as an activity that encourages the building of masculine traits, and girls' participation is therefore doubly challenging. Our focus, therefore, is to ensure that our programs are representative of both boys and girls, to ensure that organizational processes are focusing on gender inclusion, our spaces are inclusive, and there's gender-sensitive programming. Gender is integrated into whatever we do. Just to share some numbers here with you, our focus is to ensure that we reach a 50%, at least a 50% participation from both men and women, boys and girls, and we're getting there. I think these numbers are very, very encouraging. 42% of the children in our program are girls. Our community youth leaders, who are the first point of contact with the children who transact the programs, they're 33% are girls. And across the organization, there is a commitment to ensure that we are looking at gender inclusion in its entirety. When we look at the organizational processes to ensure gender inclusion, we have gender executives at the state level. We have HR representation at each operational space and a zero tolerance to discrimination and violence on the basis of gender. To create inclusive spaces, we are very clear that we've, right from the start, believed and executed mixed gender programming. In places where this has not been possible, we've started our sessions with, let's say, girls-only programs, but the focus has always been that when the community, the parents get comfortable, we move towards mixed gender programming. To make this a reality, we ensure that when we work in communities, and any session that we are doing with children, we have both male and female mentors at the sessions. We ensure that we look at whatever we do from the gender lens and ensure that it's a comfortable space for both boys and girls. The work we do, all of us are here because we are passionate about the use of sport and play to reach out to children and youth we work with. We believe in the power of play. That's why we all are here. In our country, public spaces are still looked at as more sort of under the control of men in a way. And I think it's a great achievement that we've ensured that 2,546 playgrounds across the country are more accessible to the girls. our programs are concerned, the content and method, I think it's important, all of us here who have been talking about content, that whatever content, whatever messages are going out to our children and youth, we ensure that we're sensitive and address gender differences. We have to take care that the activity should encourage and retain participation, where both boys and girls have the opportunity to experience success. We are fairly present in diverse locations across the country. And to ensure that the spaces are gender inclusive, there's a lot of work that we need to do with parents, with the community, with the systems that exist in the community. And there have been these fantastic stories of parent collectives taking the onus of getting communities to participate, to ensure that the girls are there in the programs. Each session of ours reinforces a message that girls and boys have equal rights to play, health, education, and livelihood. I'd like to end with a beautiful film which is representative of the girls in our community youth leaders, their journey, and the journey which is not an easy journey, but kind of representative to where they are, the kind of leadership that they are demonstrating, the way they are standing up for their own selves, their rights, reaching out to children, and being role models in the communities that they work with. Thank you.
I'm just another girl, like hundreds of others, thousands. I'm just another face in the crowd, but that's okay with me, because I know something. I can still make a difference. Because it's my time. It's not easy. I can't do it alone. But every step takes me closer to where I want to be. I have to make a choice every day. So, every day I choose to stand on my own feet. Sometimes the challenges are so big, but I have a responsibility. And I have the confidence to lead from the front. And I have a plan to be the best I can be, because it's my time. My time to stand up for what's right, for everyone. My time to give back what I got from others. I know there are some things I can't change, but there are some things I can. There's a way around everything. After all, I have also learned, led, and grown. My face in the crowd, and now I want to help others see theirs. I have that courage to follow my heart and mind. Because I know something now. thing as just another face in the crowd. So yes, it is my time. It's my time to choose. And I choose to make a difference.
I want to call Kaminul. He's going to speak on creating an ecosystem to encourage entrepreneurship in India.
Good morning, friends. Thanks, Pradeep. Thanks, Magic Bus, for inviting me in this gathering. I'm working for the Commonwealth Secretariat, and most of you are aware that it's better known as Commonwealth Games than its development activities. And more particularly, I'm working for the Commonwealth Youth Program, which in the Commonwealth Secretariat, 6 pillars to address democracy and development. And this year, youth has been recognized as one of the pillars. And that's an internal advocacy what we have been doing for over the years. And another good news is that sports have been integrated into the youth development work, which was there in the process for last few years. And we work across the Commonwealth to enable young people, to enable the environment, and to engage and empower young people so that they can believe that they have choices in life and they can create choices. Just a beautiful documentary that we have watched is that, yes, she has the faith, she has built the faith in her, and that she can create choices, she can make differences, and what she has done. Well, I'm going to talk on 2 aspects. One is that entrepreneurship, and the second is about equality and inclusion. And over the last 2 decades, sports have been viewed a little differently, that it could really enhance the development, it could really contribute to the development approaches. And the International Working Group, they suggested that it can really help 5 ways: empowering children and young people, reducing stigma, providing opportunities for independence, social engagement, and certainly it would work as a mechanism for inclusion. It's very important that sports for development and peace that can create and provide a safe and inclusive social space. That is the understanding all we have. But through this process, they can create the change agents who can contribute to nation building. It's very, very important to have the conceptual clarity. Why I'm telling you this, because we conducted a regional workshop on sports for development and peace, inviting 8 member countries, and the Commonwealth Advisory Board on Sports, which is responsible for organizing Commonwealth Games in every 4 years. So it's very, very surprising that most of the governments and few of the stakeholders, they are aware, they are talking on the competitive sports, winning awards and medals, but a few of them are really key. So at this point, I think that it's very important to have the conceptual clarity on how sports can really contribute to development and peace. Sports, as in the Commonwealth we define, we believe that it's a very, very broad phenomenon. It encompasses diverse forms of activities. It has the power to bring together organizations and ensures participation. But certainly, sports is not a panacea. is not a solution for all the development challenges. It's a cross-cutting tool that can support beneficial social change through strengthening established development approaches. For example, at local level, it's an effective way to working with children and youth. But the benefits of sport, if we look at from development and peace perspective, is not something that is automatic or universal. So the context, the culture, the formation of the society, the situation, everything is very, very important. And that's why we require to do the rigorous planning process. There should be a proper monitoring and evaluation, and multi-stakeholder engagement is very, very critical. And if we can really integrate sports with the development activities and agendas and ensure the core principles of democracy and development, then we can really bring tangible, sustainable results. And while I'm talking on democratic principles, it's tolerance, it's solidarity, cooperation, and respect. I would like to stress on the word respect. It's very, very important. The second thing is that it fosters inclusion of individuals and populations, otherwise marginalized by social, ethnic, cultural, and religious barriers. And the third thing I would like to focus on allows individuals to experience. Experience is very important. It's not about teaching. It's about experiencing themselves, experiencing equality, freedom, and empowerment. So, entrepreneurship is, I'm not going to define it in its very narrow sense of doing business. I'm trying to focus it in much broader aspects, that it's a process, it's a state of mind. It's what we believe in, making youth and children enterprising. And if we talk about inclusion, we need to focus on vulnerable, poor, girls and women, people with disability, 80% of the disabled people living in the developing countries, and disability increases the risk of poor educational outcome, unemployment and poverty, people in conflict areas, and people with trauma, and migration, migrant people. So it's very, very important to promote equality and inclusion, that we can do it in two ways. Sports programs can engage and provide inclusive sports environments for those who are not supported by other structures or institutions. And it can also provide inclusive activities that are available to all groups and uphold the rights of individuals, that they are protected. Second thing, sports reinforce the values and practices of equality and inclusion, provides opportunities for social engagements and partnership among all the stakeholders, integration of the programs and supporting each other, bringing a consensus is very, very critical. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for helping us with more details and conceptual understanding of sports as a tool. I invite Shika, who is, in addition to being a sports person, is also has earned bachelor's degree from Princeton University in Anthropology and South Asian Studies. She's going to talk on female empowerment to sport.
Okay, like everybody else, I'm going to wish you all a very good morning. And I'd like to thank Magic Bus, especially Seja, Matthew, Pratik, JB for allowing me to be here. And because I guess I'm the last panelist to speak, I want to thank the volunteers. This has been an incredible 3 days, 4 days here, and it's just an absolute pleasure to be here. thank you all also for coming. This is a very, very important topic that I'm about to talk about. And my presentation this morning is going to stem from my first career as a professional tennis player, my academic research and personal field work. And I'm going to basically share a few points and observations, process through which women gain the confidence, strength, and in some contexts, information and skills. And I'm going to just take a minute to bring out some sociology here and talk about what sociologists see about sports. So sociologists have long recognized sport as a key institution used to maintain and perpetuate the stability of the current social order. Brom Sports, a prison of measured time, explains that sports fulfilled a triple role. One, they ideologically reproduced the bourgeois social relations such as selection, hierarchy, subservience, obedience. Two, it spreads an organizational ideology specific to the institution of sport involving competitions, records, and output. And three, it transmits on a huge scale the general themes of the ruling bourgeois ideology, like the myth of the Superman, individualism, social achievement, success, efficiency, etc. So what I'm trying to say is the actual point is that there is a need for women in sports in society because they simultaneously perpetuate the institutional norms of a society and the fulfillment of its people. And I'm going to now talk a little bit about women's bodies because this is actually really critical. For a very long time, in the nation-building processes, we can look at Turkey, for example, or even Pakistan, women's bodies happen to be the battleground where the general public and nation-building are conceptualized. We can take the hijab, for example. Does a new country choose to enforce it or not? So females in sports are also very much responsible in creating a national sporting culture or a non-sporting culture. So the lack of females in sports in a nation defines that. Is this a sporting culture or not? French sociologist Pierre Bourdieu said that sports facilitate in social upward mobility because sports have long been associated with the cultural capital theory explained by Bourdieu, in which non-financial social assets such as acquired skill or intellect are used to accumulate cultural capital and promote upward social mobility. But even more simple than upward social mobility, sports enable greater human personal capital, right? And by that I mean enhancement of self-worth, self-concept, self-confidence, all the great things that a young individual, especially a young female, needs. So a girl or a woman who is empowered through sport with the sense of this personal human capital, who's acquired this human capital, she's automatically integrated into the social space thanks to sports, because sports is automatically a socially including mechanism, right? So what this does, by this female being so empowered and basically acquiring this social capital, she enables her community's potential, right? So she enables her community's potential to be one that is cohesive, integrated, and has a sense of social capital for itself. And the next point I'd like to make is that through this notion of acquiring social capital through sport, I feel leadership opportunities emerge hand in hand right away. That's why the UNOSDP has, youth leader. We just saw the video as well as Magic Bus, peer leader group. It becomes like an automatic flow, right? The other thing is that when you're able to, and I speak from personal experience here, have an elite skill or have a skill that very few people have, it just heightens social capital altogether for the society, for the country. I was fortunate and blessed enough to represent India, be one of the first leading women to, play on the Grand Slam level stage and be 4-1 up against Venus Williams, when I was just so young. And it totally defied the stereotype of what Indian women can do and can't do. They're not supposed to be the 10th fastest server in the world. They're not supposed to have muscles. But it happened because it's possible. I felt empowered. I played sports and I worked at it. It was something I believed I could do. So what I'm trying to say is that as women become more prominent leaders through sports and are socially included, they co-create cultural identity and national identities. And I'm just going to make a reference to this photo. That's Senator Hillary Clinton there, who started the Empowering Women Through Sports initiative with partners like ESPN and big players like Julie Foudy from women's soccer. And then Awista Ayoub there, she started the Women's Sports Club in Afghanistan, which is a huge step she took. May I have the next slide, please? So when we think about sports, we think action, we think movement, but you know, on international stages, sports have a very uncanny ability to suspend reality and hurdle prejudices and boundaries in a way not much else can. And it's in those moments of silence and stillness that female champions speak to the world. And I'm going to draw your attention to 2012 Olympians proudly representing their countries in their headscarves and gear, negotiating their very values of religion and their personal fulfillment, again, through the woman's body, negotiating these things. I would like to highlight Sara Akhtar there on the right. She broke a lot of boundaries in 2012, and she ran the 800 meter but finished last in the 2012 Olympics. She was the first woman to represent Saudi Arabia in the Olympics, and she lifted the ban on women being allowed to represent themselves in sports in Saudi Arabia, which was huge. Side by side, while that was happening for her, and it's wonderful for her, in Saudi Arabia, her countrymen were calling her a prostitute. So what she happened to say is to the Australian Women's Weekly in an article, she said, "This is such a huge honor and an amazing experience just to be representing the women." She said this after her race, and I know that this can make a huge difference. To make that first step for women is just the most amazing feeling ever. And to me, Sara is a prime example of the mechanism of sport creating young female leaders and how females in sports facilitate the first steps in shaping a cultural identity for nation and people. And despite her personal struggles and facing threats from her own countrymen, Sara Akhtar stood tall, bolstered by the inspirational figures who came before her, and she is now another sporting icon, hopefully paving the way for a generation of Saudi Arabian Islamic girls to come forward and participate in sports at such an elite level. May I have the next slide? So, I just want to draw your attention, and I think Dr. Nico mentioned this a little bit. You know, it's not all fun and games. Sports can also, as much as they empower, they can also disempower. And here we saw what happened with the Iranian soccer team here, that FIFA didn't allow them to they were not allowed to play with their scarves, with their headscarves, with their hijabs on. And they had to forfeit the match, because if they went home, with the Iranian country knowing that they didn't play with their headscarves, they would have totally been alienated and isolated in society. But thank goodness for the efforts of Moyadad and the UNSDP, we are now able to understand, okay, we have to use cultural relativity when we make rules and regulations in attire, and incorporate everybody in terms of making the rules. So now, hijabs are allowed in FIFA, and I think another great big step has been made for beach volleyball, and it's progressive. As scantily clad as beach volleyball is, it is a progressive step to allow full sleeves and full body suits as well. I also had another example of disempowerment. When you empower a female through sport in alienation, and when she comes back with this social capital and with this personal human capital, her society and her environment may not be ready for her to be standing so tall. So, especially in patriarchal societies, right, where you can have a woman who comes back, let's say she got a great trip abroad from somewhere, got to play hockey with something, she comes back and she's totally alienated because she cannot relate. So my plea to organizers is to very much include the community when it comes to empowering women and girls, because everybody needs to understand this together. It can't be at different rates. Michelle Kwan, at the last conference I spoke at in Tokyo, she and I were discussing what to do because there was so much alienation that was happening. And I said, with technology today, with Facebook and peer group leaders, it's very, very easy to have support systems and chat groups and forums to support girls when they come back. They have each other in a solid space. I'm just going to finish with the last slide, if you don't mind. So, at first blush, it might be weird to discuss sports when, so much of the world, more than half of the world, lives on less than $2.50 a day, barely putting 3 meals on the table. But sports is a binding force that positively and peacefully integrates people into the social space, and therefore it builds communities. It also facilitates in the acquisition of social and human capital, as I was discussing, and enabling a positive concept of self and self-worth for women and girls. And this is perhaps why it's a human right for women to participate in recreational activities and sports. And I just want to end with, we understand and see why the world needs more empowered girls and women. And the next steps forward will be about creating and ensuring a sustainable system of safe access to sport with organized structures to follow through to all people, no matter how poor or destitute. And in an era when we are living with so much technology, it's going to be so easy with simple clicks, right, and computer and phones and whatnot, to collectively make an effort, a cohesive community worldwide effort to push women towards leadership empowerment and leadership in a time when we need them the most. Thank you so much.
Before opening the thing for the questions, do we have 20 minutes? We can take 20 minutes? Yeah, we can take 20 minutes. I just thought because this entire discussion made me think of two instances in my research experience in the last 1 month when we are trying to get the aspirations of children in different areas, especially the slum children. There was one instance when we mapped from the Delhi slum girls, we tried to map the historically their access to the playground. It was really interesting that that map was almost similar to the map of the Palestine, how the area occupied by Palestine has come down to almost very little. It was like from access to 4 playgrounds, they actually have nothing now. The girls cannot actually, because the playgrounds have been converted into many things. That was one instance, and the second instance was when we asked about the changing aspirations over the period of time with one of the boys. He was saying at the age of 13 he wanted to be a Sachin Tendulkar. He wanted to play cricket, but by 14 or 15, his parents actually said that you should concentrate more on study, which can get you livelihood. And apparently the child, he said that, how much the cricketers earn, I can earn. But then the question which the father asked him was, tell me how many cricketers have so far been from Dalit background, the scheduled caste. There have been, so he actually did the survey when he was 17 and he found there were 2 players in the long history of 70 to 80 years. One of them being Vinod Kambli. So therefore, when we did the analysis with the children, there were 2 things which came in. One is playground at the end is a land. This is a meaning, which is politics. And players at the end are not merely sports person. They are actually people with certain identities. They have gender, they have Dalit, they have tribal. So the entire study, which entails, all this thing, which comes out with very clear thing that at the end today we don't have any other leveler. Education is not a leveler. Then what exactly today we have is only the sports, which can still be claimed as a leveling ground, which has access for everyone to play. Everyone can have different kinds of things which they can get from the sports. So with this, I just wanted to open the floor for questions to the audience, and I thank them for a wonderful speech. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just want to say thank you, Dr. Nico, and a couple of other researchers in the Sports for Development, Fred Coulter, Bruce Kelly, and Lindsay, and Oscar Mwanga, and just a couple of them. I think it's been wonderful. Far away, Sub-Saharan Africa, we don't have books. In the university where I work, Sports for Development is evolving, and I checked in the library, which has over 15,000 books, and I saw only 1 book in sports in society written by J. Coakley, and that's 1992, and that's the only book on sports for development. It tells you it is evolving, and in the part where I come from, monitoring and evaluation research is not there, but some of us are very lucky. we met people, we built social capital, and friends have been sending us journals and stuff like that in the field. And I want to commend you for your efforts. It's helped me really well because currently doing a research on social capital, and I saw your research and it's wonderful. I just want to say one thing. The sports for development stories, their anecdotes that Shaka spoke about. Sorry, I got your name wrong. And Amino also spoke about it. Wonderful stories all over. We've experienced it. I've experienced it. But the point is, how are we going to tell the people up there in government, the layman on the street, what it means? How are you going to leave the legacy to someone following? That, listen, this is sports for development. This is the impact. Now take it and then go. We don't see it. They are stories. We've experienced it, but we can't pass it on. And that's why it's not preferred, but rather deferred by policymakers and governments. So I just want to say that in as much as we want to research and find out the sustainability of programs, we should also look at the ideals, the principles, the experiences, how they are sustained, not necessarily the program. And that's what I told them, my very good friend, Dr. Ian Lindsay. I told him, yes, we can look at the sustainability of the program. It is very true. How is it going to stand the test of time? But the most important, and with my experience, is when we take the children through the various sports for development programs, what I see is after 5 years, after 6 years, I see these people and I see leadership in them. No one talks about it. That's the sustainability of the program. The ideals have been sustained. So I just want to urge you on that we can also look at that aspect of sustainability because no one talks about it. It's difficult to measure that impact, but I'll urge us to look at that section too. And also want to ask you, what are the best methods, Dr. Nico, research methodologies or methods in M&E programs? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now that works. Thank you very much. Yes, I think you're right. There's two things I want to say in response. The first one, I think the academic community has started to realise that there is that issue, particularly in sport for development. We're working a lot in developing countries, but we're not making our findings and our results available to those people that we're actually working with. So in your case, what's the possibility of someone paying hundreds and thousands of dollars of subscriptions for some academic journal? It just doesn't happen in some countries, and therefore the initiative to push towards open access, particularly in sport for development, is big, and I think we have to push a lot harder there. The second one, well, with Ian Lindsay, with the programs that he's been working on, you've been speaking with him. I think methodologically there's very different ways of looking at sport for development. And monitoring and evaluation obviously has always been dominated with quantitative approaches, which is normal because you want to see some of the facts and numbers as outcomes, and that's demanded often by funders, etc. Don't know which way you're going. Ian certainly has been working with the qualitative side of finding out the processes behind development and how you can actually achieve sustainability in the long term. I don't know what you're actually studying there, but I'm more than happy to speak to you afterwards about that. The qualitative side is growing, and I think it's important that it grows to really understand why sport for development is working and why it has challenges and limitations, particularly in that sustainability aspect.
Thank you so much for raising this very candid but very, very relevant comments and questions. We need to actually think of devising some contemporary, relevant, fit-for-purpose model that should be country context specific. I'm very happy to let you know, but it's a shame on my part that I don't have the hard copies. The Commonwealth Secretariat last year came with a publication which is available on the website and which is available on the Google as well. Commonwealth Guide to Advancing Sports for Development and Peace, which tries to analyze different process methodologies, works done by the UN, Commonwealth Secretariat, other international and national level organizations, and try to map up a lot of best practices across the world. And that guide would also provide you to look into that about analyzing the context, planning, implementing, monitoring and evaluation. I'm sure that if you are interested, you would find it very, very useful. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks for your really great questions. I think you have two of them. I'm just going to summarize them real quick, so I'm making sure I'm answering the right question. I think one of them, you were talking about sustainability. How do you ensure sustainability? It's never guaranteed. I mean, Dr. Nico was referring to the disempowerment that happens when a system is not sustainable. I think when an NGO or a program or a campaign has inherent sustainability built into it, it's automatically going to try and enforce that. That's one of the reasons I really like Magic Plus too, because I mean the title is From Childhood to Livelihood, right? So it entails a whole process, and I think some of the people who started maybe 10, 15 years ago are now youth leaders. So when you inbuild jobs and inbuild a family structure, I think there you have sustainability for people to carry it on with or without X amount of funding, because you have manpower, human growth. The other question you had was sustainability for development. How do we get it to the top, right? How do we get this beautiful concept? I believe a few years ago, a conference like this had happened. There was maybe a handful of people. If we look at today, yesterday, day before, it's just growing. It's definitely an amalgamated, consolidated effort. It doesn't happen just overnight. It's not going to happen from one government policy. It's going to take years of effort. It's going to entail celebrities. It's going to entail media and television. I think what happens is we talk about articles being on the web, but the problem is most of the places we're trying to reach don't have the internet or cell phones. So we can't forget the beautiful mechanism of television and radio. So the same processes that we use to advertise for a game, for a match, for whatever match there is, that's the same tools we need to use to get out there and promote S4D, right, with that radio.
Thank you. Any more questions?
My name is Parul Sheth and I'm from Gujarat. We are working with underprivileged children and youth in the slums of the city. My question is that sports has a very great potential of creating lots of energy. It has also the, and the energy that you generate among the children and youth. You also need to be very careful of how are we going to channelize that positive energy in a positive direction. The present global scenario of the sports is somehow pushing, and because it is taken over by the market and industries, and because of the commercialization of the sports, like media, it has been taken over. It has brought so much of competitiveness, and so instead of bridging the gap, or instead of creating the peace and harmony, sometimes it creates lots of tensions. For example, I'm not a great fan or fond of cricket, but I know that when there is a cricket match between India and Pakistan, there is so much of tension on both the sides. And instead of enjoying the games, people are like, creating so much of tension around it. And that is the competitiveness element of the sports. So on one hand, our aim is to bring people together in peace and harmony, and on the other hand, we are somehow creating that tension. So whenever there are two teams or two players or two whatever playing against each other, and there is this whole component of winning and other one is losing, and so there is so much of disempowerment that Shikha mentioned happens because of this. So how can we be much more careful
about eliminating that component of competitiveness, but using it much more for harmony and peace.
Parul, what you brought up, one is of course we've all been talking about why sport is important, but you brought an incredible thing which we all need to foreground, that how are we using sport? So when we're using these are very essential questions for us to think about, that how exactly are we channelizing sport? Are we using it to build bridges, to build community, or will it actually cause more problems than solutions? So it's important first and foremost, because we've been talking about, this entire conference is focusing on sports for all. We're talking about mass participation. We're talking about, using the play space as an area which is going to basically break all kinds of stereotypes that may exist. Because when you're playing a game, it doesn't matter whether you're a girl or boy, from A community or B community, etc. So I think it's about judiciously doing that. Also as an example, because we work we start our work fairly early with children, and as Shekhar spoke about the childhood to livelihood journey, it's really about integrating cohesion and inclusion throughout the program. And in the practice, not just the way the program is planned, but everything that is done is really building cohesion, is building a space where everybody is included. I think this is extremely important. And as you said, you're not very fond of cricket. I think it's also important to realize the context we're working in, and also, as an example, where Magic Plus is concerned, we actually started with using football essentially because we knew that that's going to be a level playing field for both girls and boys, right? If you say cricket, you have the boys getting exposed to it fairly early, and there would be a whole lot of catching up that the girls would need to do. So I think the kind of sport we're using when we're focusing on building inclusion, bringing in a lot of different sport really, so that everybody has scope to play, to experience success, to enjoy the game, and actually the participation being the core is important rather than the competition. But it has to be a strain that's running through all the messaging, all the interactions that happen. And it again percolates not just to the play field, but to all the other things which are part of a child's ecosystem, right? Whether it's school, whether it's about when a child walks out of the play field to other spaces. That is, I think, that should be our core focus.
I think we can take 2 more questions.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Manpreet, and I'm here on a very short trip. I was working in Qatar, and I was about to visit my parents on my cargo by dates. I'm in Delhi. Anyways, I got to know about the trip and I came here. My question is in general to everybody. I've always noticed that people who are involved in sports, be it the sports person, or be it people who are organizing or sponsoring it, they tend to become famous. And after a while, the youth is imitating not just what you do on the field, not just what you do in the camera, but also what you do off field. So what happens is, in some ways, sports person, they become the leaders. You are, I'm just using this term you as a radiator. That you are going in a certain direction and people are watching you, not just in this country because people love sports here, but almost all over the world. I think one common thing that we all spend time after the work, sleep and eat is sports. So when you're representing something so big and you know the impact is so big, I think it's very important that there has to be a comprehensive effort to put forward the best picture. I understand there are always days when we're not at our best, we have problems with self, problem with families, problem with money, problem with what you want to do today and tomorrow. But once you do come into limelight, even if it's for a short time, there is the media that's always following you. And when the negative stories come out to people who don't really understand the complex picture, they take clues. And in general, the world is going through such a difficult time that the negative becomes much more. You have this, I have seen practically this happen, that consists of drug addiction, smoking, and alcohol abuse, and to some extent their own personal moral conduct out of field have been taken very seriously. And then I was talking to this group of young children, I'm so young, 11, 12 years old, and I was asking about their ambitions, and most of them wanted to be cricketers or film actors. So then I was talking with the people who wanted to be cricketers, and this guy was imitating a pencil like a cigarette. Nobody in the family smokes, nobody in the immediate circle smokes. But, okay, I have nothing against smokers, but I'm just using this as an example. He was using this pencil as a smoke. And he said, well, the first thing I'll do after becoming a cricketer is to do this on the picture and have my picture taken. So, and my question is just general. How do you think that as leaders, you are in leaders in so many ways, that you should be, how could you put forward a very positive and a very wholesome approach that people who are watching and imitating you at every step, they actually sleep with the posters of their favorite cricketers right next to them. So they're watching these faces, these expressions every day, and they soak in so much of energy. Whether it's a positive energy or it's a negative energy, it goes down. Well, positive by itself is a little difficult. But when we talk about the negative, it becomes so strong, it becomes so big, that it's very difficult to take out and extract that negative essence that has seeped into the souls. And then if it is not monitored and not controlled at the grassroots level, it kind of becomes a bit bigger. So, something that's wholesome and something that is reinforcing the positiveness that we always had in ourselves, like at the bottom, we all meant to be peaceful, happy, quiet, and pure. How could we bring this on a bigger level, where we can have a very positive impact on everybody, even the ones who are remotely connected?
Thank you. Let's take two more questions. I think one from
hopefully I'm working, the mic is working, yeah. Ari Koivu from Liike Finland. First of all, thank you very much for bringing the conference on the next stage. It was a remarkable program of this morning over here. Thank you very much for all the presenters. There is always a reason behind everything, whether it's historical or whether it's come from the culture or whether it's come from the religion. And so that's the way how people are treating, for example, disabled, how they're treating women, how they're supposed to treat animals or environment. There's always a reason for that. And we always tell that don't put sports political. Don't put it political. Even FIFA has dismissed few countries because politics came into the football. It happened in Kenya as well. So my question is that should we go for political? Because would there be any changes? You've had fantastic presentations, but would there be any change in the final lap if there wouldn't be a political will? So should we do sport for all and gender equity a political issue as well, even though some people may not like it?
Oh, hi, I'm Sophie Beauvais from the Australian Sports Outreach Program. When resources are scarce and communities are fragile, when we have programs that engage with girls, isn't there a danger for boys to feel that they're left out? And how do we manage boys if they feel that they're missing out on something?
Thank you.
I will answer that question. I think we bring the political to this conference. Okay, this is a sports conference, but we have a big problem in our country, and we use this sports to regathering this problem in our society. But every place, if you will go to Palestine, you will see a lot of problem, and we use this sports to make some rehabilitation to this community. And I think if we don't have any problem in this politica, maybe the problem in our community, we not have any problem in our community like a lot of country in war. I respect your idea and your question, but this is our situation, and this is our topic why we can use sports in conflict area. And conflict area, from where this conflict came? From where? This is from politica, maybe bad community, but the first step, bad politica. Thank you.
Shika, you want to add on the sports person as role model?
Yeah. Manpreet, thanks for your question. I'm going to just give a little anecdote what happened. My dad was a really big McEnroe fan, and you know McEnroe is known for his antics and whatnot. I remember I was like about 8 or 9 years old. I was watching a match, I think it was US Open. McEnroe smashed one of his rackets out of anger. The very next day at practice with my dad, I smashed my racket. I thought I was so cool. I thought it was like, yeah, I'm going to be like McEnroe, right? My dad thought something else, and let's just say that was the last time I smashed a racket at 9 years old. And then I was training in an academy after, and there was a girl next to me. She was about 14, 15, and she started smashing her racket. The coach looked at her like, what are you doing, you know? And she says, well, Hingis does it. Martina Hingis does it. And I looked at her and I said, aren't you training to be better than Martina Hingis? Right? So what I'm trying to say is that we can't necessarily control the outrages of the players. I'm the only person that I can control. The WTA, I can't speak for the other organizations, but the WTA does enforce very strict policies of fining players for saying something terrible or being abusive or violent even in some measures. So it is important for the organizing committees to make sure that they're able to watch, monitor, and censor players through fines. I feel like you're right. Athletes are icons, and they definitely need to be watching themselves at all times. So the more we can promote safety, the more we can promote positive messages, the better.
Thank you, Pradeep. I mean, we are talking about the issues. We are talking about the girls, women, young people, marginalized people. Let's look at how do we look at those issues, whether these are the problems or we are looking at the potential aspects of it. So often, very often, we are hearing about a series of problems, but the potentials are immense. And through nurturing the potentials, we can really reduce the problems. This is one aspect, and for which we require a lot of behavioral modification, behavioral transformation, changing attitudes. I'm afraid that I have an anthropologist on my side, and the imitation of my very young friend from Qatar, where I worked for about 5 years. So she raised that actually we love to imitate, and as parents, as community, as educational institutions, religious institutions, we all encourage imitation. But we need to get rid of imitation as much as we can through encouraging innovations, through encouraging that I'm an entity, I'm an individual, and I also belong to a group, belong to the society and community. So these kind of things, unfortunately, for which we require a lot of systemic transformation, we need to create the ecosystem. And my friend from Gujarat, I mean, she has been doing amazing work, what I can guess, and I will certainly catch her up during the tea. That competition, I mean, how do we define competition? Certainly, football is not a competitor for cricket. So a batsman is not a competitor for a bowler. So there are, I mean, we need to understand that. But competition in a positive sense, in a healthy sense, is very, very important to promote entrepreneurship, to promote leadership. Because if we talk on improvement, we need to recognize competition. But that should be a very healthy, well-defined, and and manageable and achievable competition. For which, because achievement motivation is all important to transform the individuals and to transform the community. Thank you so much.
I think we don't have time now.
Ms. Bouvet, I think you asked about gender inclusion from the male side, right? And what is, you see, again, that for me talks about female empowerment in isolation. So when you don't do the empowerment, when you don't sort of facilitate these sports programs without the community involved, without both genders, without an adult youth peer leader, everyone feels isolated. Then you have different rates of improvement. You have different rates of social capital being acquired, right, or human capital being acquired. So I'm all for organizations and movements that include both male and female. I'm part of the WSF, Women's Sports Foundation, and I'm like one of 4 female Indian athletes, and the rest are like male cricketers, male boxers, and they're all there wearing that hat. And I love to see male feminists, all the time. So it's a very valid point. I don't think girls should be empowered in isolation. And I also did want to touch a little bit upon Parul's question. I think competition is inherent to humans. I think it's very important. Healthy competition is extremely important. You're right. Things can go out of hand when it comes to nations with political tensions going on, but we recognize the IOC, who they always make a sincere effort for safety. We saw what was happening right now with the LGBT issues going on in Sochi with the Winter Olympics. We can even call upon when Prime Minister Manmohan Singh called the Prime Minister of Pakistan to watch hand in hand the cricket match with Pakistan. So it's definitely aware. I think it's top of mind for even policymakers. We've got to maintain peace, especially in competitive situations.
One last question.
Thank you for the opportunity to raise the last question. Actually, it's a little bit of a remark because I feel a bit uncomfortable now with the last comments of, healthy competition. This is a very vague phrase, and what this lady raised is sports has positive and destructive power. So if we use sports, we take a huge responsibility on what we do, and we have the responsibility to make sure that the destructive powers are not unleashed. So just using sports is not enough. We have to redesign the whole setting in our sessions, how we use the sports to avoid competition. And just not to keep it in a vague space. Give me one example. My name is Clifton, I'm from Munich. So we run a program in Munich. So we use street football, and it's not normal football. So the children, before they play, they have to come together and negotiate on fair play rules they want to apply. And then they play without a referee because they are the owners of keeping those fair play rules they wanted they negotiated on and agreed upon. And then there's a third half, so to speak, after the activity. Again, they come together in the middle of the field, and then they discuss if the fair play rules have been respected, and they give each other fair play points. So one team gives the other team points if they have kept and respected the negotiated fair play rules. So at the end of the day, this team can win who has not scored the highest score, but the team who has respected the negotiated fair play rules. You see, I just wanted to give you an example that this is sports, but it has nothing to do with football as such, because we have the responsibility to avoid this destructive competition. Thank you.
Thank you. speakers for wonderful. I think let's all give a big hand for.
Thank you, panelists. We have to get the bully called politics off the playground and let the children play. I have a few announcements. Tea is going to be served here. I would request you to have a quick cup of tea so that we can take the next sessions. The next session using S4D in conflict and post-disaster situations will happen on this end. And on the other side, we will have S4D for social and disability inclusion. Another announcement is for tomorrow. There is a field trip. Please, if you are signing up, go to the information desk and let them know that you will be joining the trip. It's supposed to be real good fun. Get a trip around Delhi. It's the best time to see Delhi. So I hope to see you all there.
Yeah, we can take a well, the good thing is they'll be covering both anyway. By the way, before I forget, we need to give you that.